Thank you. So my name is Christina Prodromu. I'm Interiors Director at COX, and you have me for the next two sessions. So I will be presenting Insurance Australia Group IAG's new workplace refurbishment project. Just a quick acknowledgement of country. So we respectfully acknowledge the traditional owners of the land and the people of the Eastern Kulin Nation, the elders past and present and emerging. Quite important for this project in the sense that this was actually part of the storytelling. The beautiful artwork that you can see is actually IAG's wrap artwork. The coffee has arrived. Our scope for this project was to take what IAG was on over 10 floors and reduce their space to half. So essentially they've stayed at the 181 William Street site and they've stayed over 5 floors, reducing from the 10 or so that they were on. Scale of the project was just under 11,500, and our budget was just under 20 million, which at the square metre rate is quite tight for these times. So big part of the project was actually working out what we could keep and what we could make better. So these are existing photos, and you start to see where there was a lot of typologies in the sense of there was some vertical stairs through, but working out how we could celebrate these and make these better was partly about the story that IAG wanted to tell, especially from a ESD reviving for the future, especially since they are in insurance and they were seeing a lot of downtime. So we started this project in 2020, right in the crux of COVID. Every single meeting was had online, every single engagement. So it became really prevalent about what our brief was. So we started out with any team and worked out where we wanted to head. So the new dawn in the workplace, and really talking about what was the driving force for this project. And IAG really wanted to change the way they were working to represent differently for their staff. By doing that, they wanted to leave a lasting impression that was about being an innovative space and engaging for their staff to work through. We had a very big engagement with IAG. This is probably the project we had more meetings with the staff than ever before, and a big part of that was they wanted this fit out to represent their vision. And their vision and their values are very much about being honest, being transparent, working together better, reimagining every day and treating everyone equally. And our task was to put all of that into workplace principles that you start to see in the base there about being flexible, meaning and connection, responsive and dynamic, and well-being for everyone. Snapshot of the process we undertook. These are just Miro boards of how we engage with them, and you can start to see the workshop findings started to represent their values. The big idea that, the conceptual idea that we presented back to them was this idea of the IAG village, and this was quite contextual at the time when we were all working from our home. We were engaging in our parks locally differently. So the idea of bringing it all back together and how they were going to come back together after these times was about setting the scene for how we could create one place for IAG staff to come to. The village was essentially made up of two parts, the marketplace and the home, and then the stalls all fed into that. So you can start to see the functional elements that start to become part of the village, become part of the marketplace, and then the areas that become part of the home. So essentially the marketplace was how people came together. It had the engagement places, how people connected. You can start to visualise in a stack of the building. So these are the 5 floors that we refurbished, cut through from east to west through the marketplace. And you can start to see a real connection on how we used colour and playfulness to connect each of these floor plates, but there was an openness and a connection partly through the vertical stairs that we introduced. So we celebrated the existing connections but also introduced new voids and stairs through, and then the central elements were all about flexibility and being able to move around the spaces. The marketplace, you can start to see how that transcribes. So we also did a national approach to this. So we did the Adelaide, Melbourne and Brisbane office, and you can start to see we put different colour schemes in each of that. They were translated through different finishes palettes, all similar take but also slightly different and whimsical and engaging to the locality they're in. And you can start to see that in the finished product, how they are connected. And this was very much about the staff feeling at home, doesn't matter which state they were going to. So the kit of parts was always the same no matter where they landed. Big part of our brief was designing for everyone. This was not just about the typical elements. This went next level, braille throughout, DDA throughout. The colours that were chosen were really chosen about being engaging for everybody that used them and sensitive to everyone's requirements. Yet there was this playful nature about it that made everyone feel at home, doesn't matter when they were arriving. The layout plans, I won't fret over these long, but the green delineates the marketplace throughout, and the blue elements you can see is the vertical circulation that runs through. So level 1 and level 2 kept a lot of the existing structure, and we redeveloped them with level 2 being their main arrival area and level 1 having the terrace outside. I'm going to skip through these. Marketplace, the first impression of IAG, you can start to see where that has landed. So this is the area, the curation bar that you arrive to. Graphics with Urbanite was a big piece of it. The big bold stair that runs through and the engagement of biophilia throughout. Marketplace connection was quite important in how the kit of parts built together. And then you can start to see we end up with light, open spaces, transparency and raw materials throughout. Yet there was these little frameworks of exposed elements that really defined each of the zones and celebrated whether it was the library, the kitchen breakout area. The home was the other element that we spoke to. This was very much about engaging in a different way and providing diversity of thought. Different way of thinking, not a linear approach, but more a kit of parts that was then distributed in different kits depending on whether you were doing more focus work or collaborative work. So you can start to see on a focus distribution, there was more booth type seatings, and on a collab distribution, there was more open meeting type seating. So the end result ends up with lots of diverse settings, lots of playful colourness, but all adjacent to each other, so avoiding that sort of rabbit warren effect. Meeting rooms, slightly different approach to our typical projects. They were inbound. This was about staff taking amenity to the natural glazing and the outlook out, and then you've got beautiful elements like the library and the green biophilia coming through in the green spaces that typically were within the marketplace. That's me. Sorry, I just ran through that when you just go, oh, I'm already halfway. So that's us. That's a little quote from IAG just there. They've really celebrated. They've won Global Lehman's Awards recently for being the best top 3 in the world for home. That's mine.